You said it's as black as my skin and empty. Amara Ellis's voice sliced through the Meridian Lux Hotel's opulent lobby, silencing every onlooker. A black woman in a white hoodie, underestimated, yet holding the power to topple an empire. Where are you listening from? Drop your city below and guess. How does Amara turn this insult into a $3.2 billion reckoning? Hit subscribe to catch our latest stories of courage and justice, and share this with friends. Will her quiet strength expose a rotten system? Can one recording spark a global uproar? You won't believe how a single business card reshapes an industry. Join us to find out why Amara didn't need to shout to be heard. Her actions roared louder than words. The Meridian Lux Hotel stood like a titan over Manhattan's skyline, its glass facade catching the October sun in a dazzling blaze. Inside, the lobby was a cathedral of wealth. Marble floors gleamed under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, their prisms scattering light like captured stars. The air held a delicate trace of jasmine, mingling with the faint clink of champagne. Flutes from the lounge. It was 3:47 p.m., and the pulse of New York hummed beyond the revolving doors. But within these walls, time seemed to bow to opulence. Amara Ellis stepped through those doors, her presence a quiet disruption. Her faded, blue jeans hugged her frame, the hems frayed from years of wear. A white hoodie, slightly oversized, draped over her shoulders, its drawstrings dangling unevenly. Her sneakers, once white, bore the scuffs of countless city streets. A canvas tote bag hung from her shoulder, its simple design clashing with the designer clutches and briefcases around her. Inside it, nestled beside her laptop, was a single item of weight, a titanium Centurion card, its black surface gleaming with the promise of power. At 41, Amara was the managing director of Apex Ventures, a hedge fund wielding $87 billion in assets. Known as the Oracle of Wall Street, she had a gift for resurrecting failing companies, her decisions shaping markets from London to Shanghai. Yet she shunned the trappings of her world. No Rolex adorned her wrist, no Hermes bag swung from her arm. Her wealth was in her mind, her power in her restraint. Today, she was here to finalize a $3.2 billion investment in Meridian Global Holdings, the hotel's parent company, a deal that would launch their brand into Tokyo, Dubai, and Sao Paulo. The B lobby buzzed with the elite, men in bespoke suits barking into phones, women in stilettos gliding toward the lounge. As Amara crossed the marble expanse, eyes followed her, not with admiration but with judgment. A businessman in a pinstripe suit paused mid-sentence, his gaze lingering on her hoodie before flicking away. A woman in a fur coat, her diamonds catching. The light tightened her grip on her purse, her lips curling into a faint smirk. Near the lounge, a group of executives whispered, one muttering, "She must be lost." The words were soft, but they carried, sharp as a blade in the quiet. Amara's brown eyes didn't waver. She'd felt these stares before. In boardrooms, at galas, on private jets. They were the weight of assumption, the silent demand to prove she belonged. Her stride remained steady, her sneakers silent against the polished floor. Each step was a defiance, a refusal to shrink under their scrutiny. She reached the reception desk where Connor Reed stood, a 29-year-old gatekeeper of this gilded world. His navy blazer bore the Meridian crest, his gelled hair catching the light like a crown. His smile was practiced, polished, but his eyes, cold and calculating, betrayed him. "Good afternoon," Amara said, her voice calm, each syllable measured. "Amara Ellis, checking in for the penthouse suite, 3 nights." She slid her Centurion card across the counter, its titanium edge grazing the glass with a soft, deliberate clink. The sound seemed to hang in the air, a challenge to the room's quiet arrogance. Connor's eyes flicked to the card, then traced her outfit. Jeans, hoodie, sneakers. His gaze lingered on her skin, dark and unapologetic under the chandeliers. Glow. A sneer curled the corner of his mouth, so fleeting most would miss it. But Amara didn't. She'd seen that look too many times, the one that sized her up and found her wanting. "Penthouse suite?" Connor repeated, his tone thick, with skepticism, as if she'd asked for the moon. He tapped at his keyboard, each keystroke loud in the hushed lobby. His eyes darted to her again, scrutinizing. "Name again?" "Amara Ellis," she said, her voice steady, unshaken. The lobby's hum faded, the air growing heavy with attention. A couple waiting nearby glanced over, the man raising an eyebrow. Connor's voice, when he spoke, carried just enough to be heard beyond the desk. "This card," he said, lifting it between two fingers like evidence of a crime. "It's black. Really black." He chuckled, a low, mocking sound, and glanced at a colleague behind the desk, a young woman who stifled a laugh, her hand covering her mouth. The colleague's eyes flicked to Amara, then away, complicit in the moment. Connor leaned forward, his voice dropping but still audible. "Probably as empty as it looks, right?" The words landed like a slap, sharp and deliberate. The couple nearby froze, the woman's hand pausing on her suitcase. A man in the lounge, sipping scotch, turned his head, his expression one of mild amusement, as if watching a predictable play unfold. Amara's jaw tightened, a flicker of anger sparking in her chest, but her face remained a mask of calm. Her eyes locked on Connor's. She knew this moment. Not just an insult, but a test. This wasn't just about her. It was about the empire she was here to judge, the one she held in her hands with a single signature. She leaned forward, her voice low, each word a blade. "Run the card." Connor's smirk wavered, but he held her gaze, mistaking her restraint for weakness. With exaggerated care, he swiped the card through the terminal. The machine beeped, a green light flashing approval. His eyebrows twitched, the faintest crack in his confidence. But he recovered, sliding a room key across the counter. Not for the penthouse, but a standard room. "System says this is all we've got," he said, his tone daring her to challenge him. Amara's fingers closed around the key, her eyes never leaving his. The air between them crackled, a silent standoff in a room full of witnesses. She slipped the card back into her tote, her movements slow, deliberate. Without a word, she turned, her sneakers silent on the marble. But as she walked toward the elevator, her hand brushed her smartwatch, a subtle gesture that went unnoticed. The lobby resumed its hum, but something had shifted. A spark had been struck, and Amara Ellis was no longer just a guest. The elevator, doors slid shut, sealing Amara Ellis in a cocoon of polished steel. The hum of the ascending car was drowned by the echo of Connor Reed's words, "Black as your skin, probably as empty." They looped in her mind, each syllable a shard of broken glass. Her reflection stared back from the mirrored walls. Faded jeans, white hoodie, brown eyes blazing with a fury she refused to let spill. The Meridian Lux Hotel's opulence felt like a cage now, its luxury a glittering lie. It was 4:02 p.m., and the weight of the insult settled into her bones, heavy but sharpening her resolve. Amara's room on the 12th floor was a standard affair, a far cry from the penthouse suite she'd booked. No skyline view greeted her, just a sliver of Manhattan's rooftops through a narrow window. The bed was crisp, the minibar stocked, but the absence of promised amenities, a marble bath, an espresso machine, stung like a second slight. It wasn't about comfort, it was about respect, and Meridian had already failed that test. She dropped her canvas tote on the desk, the Centurion card inside it a silent reminder of her power. At 41, Amara was no stranger to prejudice. As managing director of Apex Ventures commanding $87 billion, she'd faced boardrooms where her skin drew whispers before her strategies won silence. But this was personal, a public jab in a lobby of strangers. She paced the room, her sneakers silent on the carpet. Connor's sneer, his casual cruelty, wasn't just an attack on her. It was a symptom of a deeper rot, one she'd come to evaluate. Apex's $3.2 billion deal with Meridian Global Holdings hinged on trust, on a culture that matched their glossy ethics reports. Anonymous tips about racial bias had reached her team during vetting, complaints of black guests denied services. staff overlooked for promotions. Amara had hoped they were outliers, but Connor's words were proof of a pattern, and she was now its target. Her anger simmered, not loud but molten, flowing through her veins. She stopped at the window, staring at the city's pulse below. New York didn't pause for her pain, but she wouldn't either. She needed to test the waters, to see if Connor's disdain was a lone act or a thread in Meridian's fabric. Slipping her smartwatch into record mode, she grabbed her room key and headed downstairs, her hoodie a deliberate choice. If they judged her for it, she'd let them dig their own grave. The concierge desk was tucked near the lobby's edge, its mahogany counter gleaming under soft lights. A young woman, Emily, stood behind it, her blonde hair pulled into a tight bun, her name tag pinned precisely. Amara approached, her voice even. "I'd like access to the VIP lounge. It's included with my penthouse booking." Emily's eyes flicked over her hoodie, jeans, and tote, lingering on her skin. A hesitation, brief but telling, crossed her face. "Let me check," Emily said, her tone clipped, her fingers tapping the keyboard with unnecessary force. The screen glowed, but her gaze darted back to Amara, assessing. "I'm sorry, your room doesn't qualify for lounge access." "I booked the penthouse," Amara said, her words steady, her watch capturing every nuance. Emily's lips pursed, her eyes dropping to Amara's sneakers. "There must be a mix-up. You'll need to speak to reception." Her voice carried a faint edge, as if Amara's presence was an inconvenience. As Amara turned, Emily's mutter reached her ears, soft, but clear. "Why do they always think they belong here?" The words landed like a second blow, quieter but no less cutting. A man waiting nearby, his suit crisp and briefcase monogrammed, glanced up from his phone, his expression unreadable. Amara's pulse quickened, but her face remained a mask. She walked toward the lounge, its velvet ropes a silent barrier. Through the glass doors, she saw white guests sipping martinis, their laughter muffled. A staffer at the entrance eyed her approach, his hand already raised to stop her. She didn't bother trying, she'd seen enough. Back in the elevator, Amara's mind raced. Emily's dismissal, her muttered jab, echoed Connor's mockery. This wasn't one bad actor, it was a culture, woven into the hotel's seams. Her watch had recorded both encounters, the audio a growing arsenal. But she needed more, a broader canvas of Meridian's flaws. She stepped into the rooftop restaurant, its amber lights casting a warm glow over linen-clad tables. The hostess, a man named Liam, greeted her with a tight smile. "Table for one?" he asked, his eyes scanning her outfit with thinly veiled disdain. "Yes," Amara said, her voice calm. Liam led her to a corner table, tucked behind a pillar, far from the panoramic windows showcasing Manhattan's glitter. Empty tables lined the glass, their views reserved for others. A white couple entered moments later, their casual attire no fancier than hers, yet Liam ushered them to a window seat with a flourish. "This is fine for you," he said to Amara, handing her a menu. His tone dismissing her as an afterthought. Her watch caught it all, the words, the tone, the disparity. Amara sipped her water, her anger no longer a spark but a steady flame. Each slight was a brick in a wall of exclusion, and she was mapping its contours. Connor's insult had been the first crack, but Emily and Liam were widening it, revealing a system that judged worth by skin and status. She returned to her room, the city's lights now a distant shimmer. Sitting at the desk, she replayed the recordings, Connor's voice the loudest. "Black as your skin, probably as empty." Her mother's face flashed in her mind, a nurse turned away from a hotel in the 80s for looking out of place. This wasn't just about Amara. It was about every black woman diminished by a glance, a word, a closed door. Her fingers grazed her tote, the Centurion card inside it a quiet promise. She wasn't here to be broken. She was here to measure Meridian's soul. And if it failed, she'd wield her power not with shouts but with precision. As she slipped off her hoodie, a plan took shape, her resolve as unyielding as the city outside. The Meridian Lux Hotel's 12th floor room was a fortress of quiet. But inside, Ellis's mind, a storm was brewing. It was 7:14 a.m. on her second day, and the city's dawn painted the narrow window in hues of amber and steel. Her faded jeans and white hoodie lay folded on the chair, a silent rebellion against the hotel's gilded expectations. On the desk, her laptop glowed, its screen open to a secure Apex Ventures portal. Amara's canvas tote sat beside it, the Centurion card within a reminder of her unseen power. The weight of yesterday's insults, Connor's sneer, Emily's mutter, Liam's dismissal, had hardened into purpose. She wasn't here to endure. She was here to expose. Amara's smartwatch, its recorder primed, rested on her wrist like a soldier awaiting orders. The audio files from yesterday were already uploaded, each clip a shard of evidence. Connor's black as your skin, Emily's why do they think they belong here, Liam's this is fine for you. But shards weren't enough. She needed a mosaic, an undeniable pattern to justify pulling Apex's $3.2 billion deal with Meridian Global Holdings. As managing director of a $87 billion hedge fund, Amara didn't make decisions on emotion. Her reputation as the Oracle of Wall Street came from precision, and today, she'd wield it like a blade. She opened a new file in Apex's portal, titling it Meridian Lux Audit, Ethical Violations. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, logging yesterday's encounters with timestamps and descriptions. Check-in, 3:47 p. Margin right, 0, margin left, 0, margin top, 0, margin bottom, 0, M. Racial profiling via mocking comment on Centurion card. Concierge, 4:15 p.m. Denial of VIP lounge access despite booking, accompanied by a derogatory remark. Each entry was clinical, but beneath her calm, a fire burned. This wasn't just about her. It was about every black guest diminished by Meridian's velvet-gloved prejudice. Amara slipped on her hoodie, its worn fabric a deliberate choice. If Meridian judged her for it, she'd let their bias be their noose. She headed to the gym, a glass-walled sanctuary on the 3rd floor, its treadmills humming under morning light. At the entrance, a staffer named Marcus, his badge gleaming, scanned her room key with exaggerated scrutiny. His eyes flicked from her sneakers to her face, lingering on her skin. "Room 1204?" he asked, his tone implying doubt. "Yes," Amara said, her watch recording. Marcus tapped his tablet, his brow furrowing as if her presence was a puzzle. "I need to verify this. Standard rooms don't usually get gym access this early." Behind her, a white man in sweatpants breezed past. His nod to Marcus met with a quick smile and no questions. Amara's jaw tightened, but she stood still, her voice even. "Check the system." Marcus hesitated, then waved her through, his reluctance palpable. The exchange was brief, but her watch caught it. The doubt, the disparity. Inside, she jogged lightly on a treadmill, her eyes scanning the room. A black janitor mopped the floor, ignored by the staffer chatting with white guests. Another thread in the pattern. Next, Amara visited the spa, its entrance a cocoon of lavender and soft music. She booked a massage, presenting her room key. The receptionist, a woman named Claire, smiled thinly, her eyes sweeping Amara's hoodie. "Did you mean to book at the budget spa downtown?" she asked, her tone syrupy but sharp. Amara's pulse quickened, but her face stayed neutral. "No, I meant here. Penthouse package." Claire's smile faltered, her fingers pausing on the keyboard. "Let me check," she said, her voice implying Amara was a glitch. The system confirmed her booking, but Claire's eyes lingered, as if the confirmation was a mistake. "It's available," she said finally, her tone flat. Amara nodded, her watch capturing the subtle jab. As she left, Claire's whisper to a colleague, "Probably can't afford it," drifted over, another nail in Meridian's coffin. Back in her room, Amara transferred the new recordings to her laptop, her movements methodical. The gym and spa clips joined the others, each a brushstroke and a portrait of exclusion. She added them to her report. Gym, 7:32 a.m. Selective scrutiny of room key based on appearance. Spa, 8:10 a.m. Assumption of inability to afford services, followed by derogatory whisper. Her notes were stark, but her mind churned with memories. Her mother, a nurse, turned away from a hotel for looking out of place. Her grandmother, a waitress, fired for folding linens, too slowly. This fight was theirs too. Amara leaned back, the city's skyline a distant blur. Meridian's ethics reports had promised inclusivity, but her experience screamed otherwise. Apex's deal wasn't just financial. It was a bet on Meridian's soul, and so far it was bankrupt. She needed one more test, a final piece to seal her case. The business center, a hub for elite guests, was her next stop. She arrived at 9:05 a.m., requesting a private meeting room. The attendant, a man named Derek, glanced at her hoodie, his smile forced. "These rooms are for priority guests," he said, his tone implying she wasn't one. "I booked the penthouse," Amara said, her watch rolling. Derek's eyes narrowed, his fingers tapping the desk. "The system shows a standard room. You'll need to upgrade." A white woman in yoga pants approached, her request for the same room granted instantly. Amara's voice stayed calm. "Check again." Derek complied, his reluctance clear, but the system confirmed her status, free. Handed her a key, his silence loud. The recording captured it all. Amara returned to her room, her report now a litany of slights. 8 clips, each a testament to Meridian's rot. She stared at the screen, her resolve steel. This wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. The $3.2 billion deal hung in the balance, and she held the scale. As she saved her file, her watch beeped, its battery low, but its mission was clear. She wasn't done yet, and Meridian's judgment was coming. The Meridian Lux Hotel's lobby pulsed with morning energy, its marble floors reflecting the golden glow of chandeliers like a frozen sea under dawn. At 9:14 a.m., Amara Ellis stepped from the elevator, her faded jeans and white hoodie a stark contrast to the tailored suit swirling around her. Her canvas tote hung lightly from her shoulder, but its weight, Centurion card and her resolve, felt like iron. The air carried the sharp tang of espresso from the lounge, but to Amara, it was thick with the residue of prejudice. Today she wasn't here to observe. She was here to strike. Her smartwatch, its recorder primed, hugged her wrist, a silent ally. The evidence she'd gathered, 8 audio clips of slights from the gym, spa, and beyond, sat securely in Apex Ventures' portal, an indictment. Meridian's rot. But it was Connor Reed's first insult. Black as your skin, probably as empty. That burned hottest. A wound she'd turn into a weapon. As managing director of a $87 billion hedge fund, Amara knew power wasn't in volume but in precision. Today, she'd wield it to carve truth from arrogance. The reception desk loomed ahead, its mahogany surface gleaming under recessed lights. Connor stood behind it, his navy blazer crisp, his gelled hair catching the glow like a halo he didn't deserve. He was chatting with a colleague, a young woman whose laughter faltered as Amara approached. Connor's eyes lifted, his practiced smile thinning as he recognized her. "Back again, ma'am?" he said, his tone dripping with condescension, as if her presence was a tiresome rerun. Amara stopped, her sneakers silent on the marble. She placed her Centurion card on the counter, its titanium edge grazing the wood with a deliberate clink. The sound cut through the lobby's hum, drawing eyes. "You said this was empty," she said, her voice low but clear, each word a blade. "Explain." Connor's smirk twitched, his eyes flicking to the card, then to her hoodie, her skin. The colleague shifted, her gaze darting away. "It was just a joke," Connor said, shrugging, his casualness a shield. "No need to get upset, ma'am." His voice carried, loud enough for a couple checking out to glance over, their suitcases pausing mid-roll. "A joke?" Amara repeated, her tone steady but sharp, loud enough to ripple through the lobby. "You said my card is as black as my skin and probably empty. That's your idea of humor?" The words landed like a thunderclap, silencing the chatter. A woman in a navy blazer, waiting for a bellhop, angled her phone, its lens catching the scene. Connor's face reddened, his confidence cracking like thin ice. "I didn't mean it like that," he stammered, his hands gripping the counter. "You meant exactly what you said," Amara said, leaning forward, her brown eyes locking onto his. "And I recorded every word." She tapped her smartwatch, the gesture small but seismic. The lobby froze, the air heavy with attention. A man in a gray suit sipping coffee in the lounge lowered his cup, his brow furrowing. The woman with the phone zoomed in, her fingers trembling but steady. Connor's jaw tightened, his bravado unraveling. "You can't just," he started, his voice rising. "I can," Amara cut in, her voice a whip. "And I will." She snatched her card from the counter, the motion swift, final. Her eyes never left his, her gaze a mirror forcing him to see his rot. The colleague stepped back, her face pale, as if sensing a storm she couldn't escape. The lobby's hum had died, replaced by a tense silence, broken only by the faint click of the woman's phone recording. Amara's heart pounded, but her face was stone. This wasn't about anger. It was about accountability. Connor's insult wasn't just personal, it was a symptom of a system that Apex's $3.2 billion couldn't endorse. Her mind flicked to the contract, Clause 17B, ethical conduct required. Meridian had failed, and she'd prove it. But as she turned, the woman with the phone stepped closer, her voice a whisper. "I got it all on video. Can I share it?" Amara paused, her eyes meeting the woman's earnest, angry, allied. "Do it," she said, her voice soft but firm. The woman nodded, her fingers already tapping her screen. Amara moved toward the elevator, her sneakers silent but her presence deafening. The lobby stirred, whispers erupting like sparks. "Did she say recorded?" a guest muttered. "Who is she?" another asked. Connor stood frozen, his hands trembling on the keyboard. His colleague avoided his gaze, busying herself with papers. The woman with the phone uploaded the video, her caption forming in her mind. Amara stepped into the elevator, the doors closing with a soft thud. Inside, she exhaled, her reflection in the mirrored walls showing a woman unbroken, unbowed. Her watch beeped, its battery waning but its mission alive. She leaned against the wall, her mind racing. The video was out there now, a spark in a world of dry tinder. She'd exposed Connor, but this was bigger than one man. It was about an empire's soul. Her tote felt heavier, the Centurion card a quiet promise. She wasn't just a guest. She was a judge, and Meridian's trial had begun. As the elevator climbed, she closed her eyes, her mother's face turned away from a hotel decades ago, flashing in her mind. This was for her, for every black woman diminished. Amara's next move was forming a plan as sharp as her gaze. The Meridian Lux Hotel's lobby, once a bastion of serene opulence, crackled with unease by noon. The chandeliers still gleamed, casting prisms across the marble, but the air was electric, charged with whispers and the faint buzz of phones. It was 12:03 p.m., and Amara Ellis sat in her 12th floor room, her faded hoodie draped over the chair, her laptop open to Apex Ventures' secure portal. Her smartwatch, its battery now recharged, rested beside her canvas tote, the Centurion, card within it a quiet sentinel. Outside, Manhattan pulsed, oblivious to the storm she'd unleashed. Inside, the world was shifting, and it had taken just 52 seconds to ignite it. The video, captured by the woman in the lobby during Amara's confrontation with Connor Reed, had erupted online. Uploaded to Twitter at 9:22 a.m., with the caption, "Meridian Lux receptionist mocks black guest's card. Gets called out." It was a grenade in a glass palace. The clip, raw and unedited, showed Connor's smug, "It was just a joke," crumbling under Amara's steely, "You said my card is as black as my skin and empty. I recorded every word." By noon, it had amassed 8.7 million views, a wildfire spreading across digital planes. Hashtags, Amara Ellis, a Meridian exposed, sock check the card, surged to global trends, their letters a rallying cry. Amara watched the metrics climb from her screen, her brown eyes steady but her pulse quickening. The comments were a torrent. This happened to me at Meridian. Boycott them. Who is she? Black travelers shared their slights, denied rooms, questioned IDs, cold stares. A woman from Atlanta wrote, "They asked if I was in the right hotel, suit and all." A man from Chicago posted, "Meridian staff checked my card 3 times." The video leaped to TikTok, where users stitched it with their stories, and Instagram Reels, where it looped under captions like "Know her name." Reddit threads dissected Connor's sneer, branding him the face of entitled prejudice. Downstairs, the lobby was a battlefield. Guests crowded the reception desk, their voices sharp. A black couple, longtime patrons, canceled their annual stay. The wife's voice trembling. "We've spent thousands here, and this is what you are." A businessman in a pinstripe suit demanded the manager, citing the video. Phones rang unanswered, their shrill tones a funeral dirge for Meridian's reputation. Connor, still at the desk, his navy blazer now rumpled, fielded complaints with a forced smile, his eyes darting nervously. The colleague from earlier avoided him, her head bowed over paperwork. Meridian's PR team, holed up in a 5th-floor office, scrambled to douse the flames. At 10:47 a.m., they tweeted a tepid apology. "We're investigating an isolated incident and are committed to inclusivity." It was a match tossed into gasoline. Replies flooded in, thousands strong. "Isolated, this is your brand. Fire him. Amara deserves better." Screenshots of the apology racked up 3.2 million views. Each share a nail in Meridian's coffin. A viral TikTok trend emerged. Users holding up black cards, real or drawn, saying, "Check my name, not my skin." Their voices a chorus of defiance. Amara's phone buzzed with a call from Lena Harper, Apex's chairwoman. "Amara, the board's seen the video," Lena said, her voice taut. "It's everywhere. Your report seals it. Pull the deal." Amara exhaled, her decision validated. She opened her laptop, drafting the termination notice for Meridian's CEO. Apex Ventures withdraws its $3.2 billion investment due to systemic discrimination, as evidenced by staff behavior and public testimony. She attached her audit file, 8 audio clips, timestamps, and notes, and the video link now at 10.4 million views. At 12:19 p.m., she hit send, copying Apex's board. The email was public by 12:30 p.m., posted on Apex's website with a stark headline, "Discrimination is not an investment we support." The financial fallout was swift, a guillotine dropping on Meridian's empire. By 1:15 p.m., their stock plummeted 19%, erasing $1.8 billion in market value. A London hedge fund dumped $400 million in shares, citing reputational risk. A Dubai developer paused a $900 million partnership, their email blunt, "We cannot align with this." Financial news tickers flashed. Meridian Global Holdings reels as Apex pulls 3.2 B. Bloomberg's headline read, "One video, one woman, $1 billion loss." In the lobby, Connor's face was ashen, his hands fumbling with a guest's keycard. At 1:47 p.m., the manager, a harried woman in a gray suit, summoned him to her office. "You're done," she snapped, her voice low but lethal. "Out by 2C." Connor's protest died in his throat as security escorted him through a side door, his badge confiscated, his navy blazer a discarded skin. Guests watched, some filming, their phones capturing his fall. Amara sat still, her room a quiet eye in the storm. She didn't check Twitter, didn't read the comments. Her fight wasn't for likes. It was for truth. Her mother's face, turned away from a hotel in the 80s, flickered in her mind. This was for her, for every black woman judged by a glance. The video's reach, now 12 million, was a megaphone she hadn't sought but wouldn't silence. Her tote lay open, the Centurion card glinting. She'd exposed Meridian's soul, and the world was listening. The Meridian Lux Hotel's grandeur was a hollow shell by the morning of Amara Ellis's 3rd day. Its chandeliers still glittered, but their light seemed dimmed, as if mourning. The empire's unraveling. At 7:30 a.m., across town at Meridian Global Holdings Park Avenue headquarters, A glass-walled boardroom buzzed with panic. The air was thick with the scent of stale coffee and desperation. The city's skyline a mocking backdrop through floor-to-ceiling windows. Amara, in her 12th-floor hotel room, remained a distant specter, her faded hoodie and canvas tote untouched by the chaos she'd sparked. But her presence loomed, a quiet force that had cracked open Meridian's facade. In the boardroom, a massive screen replayed the 52-second video, now at 22 million views. Amara's voice, "You said my card is as black as my skin and empty," cut through the room, followed by Connor Reed stammering, "I didn't mean it like that." The board, 12 executives in tailored suits, sat frozen, their faces a gallery of dread. CEO Gregory Holt, 62, his silver hair disheveled, slammed his fist on the mahogany table. "How did we not know who she was?" he barked, his voice hoarse from a sleepless night. No one answered. They hadn't checked her name, just as Connor hadn't checked her card. The numbers were brutal. Meridian's stock had plummeted 24% since yesterday, shedding $2.4 billion in market value. Apex Ventures' public withdrawal of its $3.2 billion investment, announced with Amara's damning audit, was a death knell. The report, 8 audio clips, timestamps, and accounts of racial profiling, had leaked to CNN, its headline searing, "A hoodie, a black card, and a 3.2B lesson." The Wall Street Journal piled on, "Meridian's 2.4B loss, one woman's. Stand against bias. Hashtags. Amara Ellis is Meridian exposed," continued to trend, fueling boycotts and cancellations. Holt's deputy, Caroline Voss, a steely woman in her 50s, scrolled through Twitter on her tablet, her lips pursed. "It's not just the video," she said, her voice low. "Guests are posting their own stories. Black families denied suites, staff ignored for promotions. It's a pattern, and we ignored it." The board shifted uneasily, their diversity reports once waved as shields now exposed as hollow. A junior executive, David Lynn, ventured, "We vetted her firm. Apex has pulled deals for ethics before. Why didn't we act?" Holt's glare silenced him, but the question hung, a guillotine over their complacency. Outside, the fallout deepened. At the hotel, the lobby was a ghost town, its usual bustle replaced by empty velvet ropes and unanswered phones. A black concierge, unnoticed for years, quit at 8:15 a.m., leaving a note. "I've served your guests, but you've never seen me." Guests trickled out, their suitcases rolling like retreating armies. A loyalty program member, a black doctor, from Boston emailed corporate, "Your brand is a lie, I'm done." By 9 a.m., cancellations had cost $1.2 million in bookings, with more bleeding by the hour. Meridian's partners fled like rats from a sinking ship. A Dubai developer, poised to break ground on a $900 million project, sent a curt email, "We're pausing until your ethics are clarified." A luxury travel agency, Elite Escapes, dropped Meridian from its brochures, their statement blunt, "We cannot endorse exclusion." A financial seminar set to draw 500 investors to the hotel relocated to the Hilton Mayfair, citing reputational concerns. The brass plaques boasting excellence since 1924 now seemed like epitaphs. Holt stood, pacing the boardroom, his tie loosened. "We need a response," he said, his voice fraying. "Training, audits, something." Voss shook her head. "Too late. Apex's report is public. Investors are dumping us." She projected a Bloomberg ticker. Meridian stock down 26%, 2.7B lost. A board member, an older man with a Rolex glinting, muttered, "One woman, one video." Holt spun, his eyes wild. "Not one woman. Amara Ellis, managing director of Apex. She's not a guest, she's a titan." The realization landed like a bomb. Amara's name, ignored at check-in, was now a synonym for reckoning. Her audit, meticulous and merciless, had exposed not just Connor, but a culture. Staff untrained, biases unchecked, complaints buried. The boardroom screen flickered to a new clip, a TikTok of a black teenager holding a drawn black card. Check. My name, not my skin. It had 4 million likes. Holt sank into his chair, defeated. At the hotel, the manager, Ellen Price, faced her own reckoning. At 10:22 a.m., she drafted a memo to staff, all personnel to undergo immediate bias training. But the words felt futile, a bandage on a severed limb. She'd fired Connor yesterday, but the stain was hers too. She'd seen the diversity reports, dismissed the complaints as overreactions. Now her phone buzzed with resignation letters. 3 staffers, all people of color, were gone. At noon. Amara, in her room, worked silently, unaware of the boardroom's chaos. She reviewed Apex's next steps, her laptop open to a draft statement reinforcing the deal's end. Her mother's face, turned away from a hotel decades ago, lingered in her mind. This wasn't about vengeance, it was about justice for those without her platform. Her tote sat open, the Centurion card a quiet anchor. The boardroom clock ticked past 11 a.m. Holt's voice broke the silence. We rebuild or we die. But the hashtags kept growing, the cancellations kept coming, and Amara's shadow stretched longer. Meridian's soul was on trial, and the verdict was still unfolding. The Meridian Lux Hotel's lobby, once a beacon of untouchable luxury, stood eerily quiet on the 4th day, its marble floors reflecting a muted dawn. The chandeliers hung heavy, their prisms dulled by the weight of a fallen empire. Beyond these walls, the hospitality industry trembled, caught in the aftershocks of Amara Ellis's stand. It was 6:45 a.m., and in her 12th floor room, Amara worked, silently, her faded hoodie folded neatly, her laptop open to Apex Ventures' next moves. Her canvas tote rested on the desk, the Centurion card within it a quiet symbol of the power she'd wielded, not with shouts, but with truth. Across Manhattan, boardrooms buzzed with a new urgency. Amara's audit, paired with the viral video, now at 28 million views, had ignited a reckoning far beyond Meridian Global Holdings. The hashtags, Amara Ellis, she Meridian Exposed, had morphed into Check the Card, a global call for accountability. Her 52-second confrontation with Connor Reed, his sneering, "It was just a joke," drowned by her steely, "I recorded every word," was no longer just a moment. It was a movement. The industry, long cloaked in polished promises of inclusivity, faced a mirror it couldn't ignore. At Ernst & Young's Midtown office, a team of consultants unveiled the Ellis audit at 8 a.m., a rigorous framework inspired by Amara's report. It mandated blind hiring, real-time bias reporting, and guest experience reviews, with penalties for non-compliance. The lead consultant, a black woman named Dr. Nia Carter, addressed a packed room of hotel executives. Amara Ellis didn't just expose Meridian. She exposed us all. Change or be left behind. By noon, 4 major chains, Monarch Residences, Horizon Collection, Sterling Suites, and Azure Hotels, adopted the audit, their CEOs signing pledges live-streamed on LinkedIn. In Chicago, the Monarch Residences chain rolled out a 24/7 anonymous hotline for staff to report discrimination. Its first call logged at 9:17 a.m. A black bellhop cited years of being passed over for promotions. In Miami, Horizon Collection introduced bias simulation training, where managers role-played as marginalized guests, their discomfort a lesson in empathy. Sterling Suites, based in Los Angeles, replaced their diversity brochures with actionable metrics, 30% of leadership roles to be filled by people of color within 2 years. Azure Hotels in London partnered with minority-owned businesses for supplies, their contracts signed by day's end. The ripple effect reached academia. At NYU's Stern School of Business, Professor Elena Torres added the Meridian Collapse to her MBA curriculum, her lecture hall packed at 10:30 a.m. Culture isn't a poster, she told students, projecting Amara's audit. It's what happens at the front desk when no one's watching. Her syllabus cited Amara's $3.2 billion deal pull as a case study in ethical investing, with Apex Ventures hailed as a model. Harvard and Wharton followed, their case studies, downloaded 12,000 times by evening. Consulting firms capitalized on the shift. McKinsey published a report at 1 p.m. The Amara Effect: Why True Change Fixes Systems, Not Optics. It cited Meridian's $2.7 billion market value loss and warned, hospitality must rebuild trust or face extinction. Deloitte launched a $10 million initiative to train 5,000 hotel staff in bias recognition. Their sessions were booked solid. By 2:15 p.m., smaller firms like Equinox Analytics offered Ellis-compliant audits, their phones ringing off the hook. The public's voice amplified the pressure. On Twitter, Boycott Meridian trended alongside Ball Support Ellis, with users sharing pledges to book only with audited hotels. A viral Instagram post from a Black travel influencer, A Wander with Zoe, read, "I'm done with places that smile while judging my skin." Her 1.2 million followers shared it, driving traffic to a new app, Inclusive Stays, which rated hotels on equity metrics. By 3 p.m., the app had 50,000 downloads, its servers crashing under demand. Amara, still in her room, was unaware of the industry's convulsions. She drafted a memo to Apex's board, outlining reinvestment options for the $3.2 billion, prioritizing firms with verified ethics. Her phone, silenced, buzzed with unread messages, reporters from Forbes, a TED Talk invite, a Time magazine query. She ignored them, her focus unbroken. Her mother's memory, a nurse denied entry to a hotel in the 80s, anchored her. This wasn't about fame. It was about forging a path for those without her platform. At the Meridian, the lobby's silence was deafening. A single guest checked out at 4:12 p.m., her suitcase's wheels echoing. The manager, Ellen Price, stood behind the desk, her eyes hollow. She'd issued a second apology email, promising reforms, but it sank like a stone in the digital sea. The hotel's brass plaques proclaiming excellence since 1924 mocked her. She overheard a remaining staffer whisper, "Amara Ellis, broke us." The industry's transformation was no longer a choice, it was survival. As dusk settled over Manhattan, hotel chains raced to align with the Ellis audit, their press releases flooding inboxes. But the question lingered. Could they change their souls, or just their scripts? Amara's shadow stretched across the city, her stand a beacon. The fight wasn't over, and the world was still watching. The Meridian Lux Hotel's lobby, once a stage for grandeur, was a mausoleum of its former glory on the fifth day. Its marble floors, scuffed by fleeing guests, reflected a dawn that felt more like dusk. The chandeliers hung silent, their light unable to pierce the pall of disgrace. It was 6:12 a.m., May 15, 2025, and Amara Ellis sat in her 12th floor room, the city's skyline a faint glow beyond her window. Her faded hoodie lay draped over a chair, her canvas tote open on the desk, the Centurion card glinting like a blade sheathed but ready. Her laptop hummed, open to Apex Ventures' reinvestment plans, but her mind lingered on the cost, not of the $3.2 billion deal she'd ended, but of standing as a beacon in a world quick to judge. Amara's phone, silenced, vibrated with unread messages. CNN, Vogue, a podcast host begging for her voice. She ignored them, her brown eyes fixed on a framed photo slipped from her tote, a faded image of her mother, a nurse in a crisp uniform, smiling despite a life of slights. In the 80s, her mother had been turned away from a hotel for looking out of place, her dignity bruised but unbroken. Amara's fight was for her, for every black woman diminished by a glance, a sneer, a closed door. Yet the weight of being a symbol pressed on her, a quiet toll born in solitude. Across town, Connor Reed's world had collapsed into a rented studio in Queens, its peeling walls a far cry from Meridian's polish. At 7:03 a.m., he sat on a sagging couch, his navy blazer discarded in a corner like a shed skin. His LinkedIn, deleted after 15,000 reports, was a ghost, his name blacklisted on job platforms. A Reddit thread with 42,000 upvotes tracked his fall, from mocking a titan to bartending upstate. He'd tried a bar job in Poughkeepsie, but a guest recognized him, their TikTok post, Meridian's racist pouring shots. garnering 2 million views. Connor's phone, once alive with notifications, was silent, his texts to former colleagues unanswered. His arrogance, once a shield, was now a chain, dragging him into obscurity. At the hotel, Ellen Price, the manager, stood behind the deserted reception desk at 8:22 a.m., her gray suit wrinkled, her eyes hollow. She'd fired Connor, issued apologies, but the stain was hers. She'd ignored complaints of bias, dismissed them as misunderstandings. Now her inbox overflowed with resignations. 5 staffers, 4 of them people of color, had quit, their notes citing a toxic culture. A black housekeeper, Maria, left a post-it. "I cleaned your rooms, but you never saw me." Ellen's hands trembled as she read it, her career unraveling with each empty shift. Amara's toll was different, not of ruin but of isolation. At 9:15 a.m., she sipped black coffee, no sugar, in her room, reviewing Apex's next steps. Young intern, a black woman named Kayla, had emailed her, "I want to learn your strength, Ms. Ellis." Amara's reply was brief, "You already have it." But the words felt heavy. She'd become a beacon, but beacons stood alone, their light casting shadows others couldn't see. Her mother's photo grounded her, a reminder that this was bigger than her pain. Outside, the public's anger fueled the storm. On Twitter, Charn Boycott Meridian trended with 1.3 million posts, users sharing stories. Meridian staff asked if I was a delivery driver, wrote a black lawyer. Instagrams of Travel with Justice with 800,000 followers posted Amara's audit captioned, "Her fight is ours." A TikTok trend, check the card, showed users, black, brown, white, holding up cards, demanding respect. One video by a black teen in Atlanta hit 5 million likes. "Amara taught me my worth isn't my skin." The movement wasn't just digital, it was personal, a collective refusal to be unseen. At Meridian, the lobby's silence was a wound. A lone guest checked out at 10:07 a.m., her heels clicking like a metronome of defeat. The hotel's market value, down $3.1 billion, was a headline on CNBC. Meridian's fall, a lesson in accountability. Ellen overheard a bellhop whisper, "Amara didn't just win, she changed the game." The words stung, a truth she couldn't dodge. Connor in his studio scrolled X, his fingers pausing on a post. "Amara Ellis is a hero." He tossed his phone, the screen cracking on the floor. His fall wasn't just professional, it was existential, a man unmoored by his own hubris. He'd judged Amara by her hoodie, her skin, and now the world judged him. Amara packed her tote, her movements deliberate. She'd leave soon, her work here done. But the toll lingered, a quiet ache for those who'd face what she had, without her platform. Her mother's smile in that faded photo was her anchor. She wasn't a hero, just a woman who refused to bow. As she zipped her bag, her watch beeped, a reminder of time's march. The world had seen her truth, but its cost was hers to carry. The Meridian Lux Hotel stood like a relic under Manhattan's gray dawn, its glass facade dulled by the weight of its disgrace. The lobby, once alive with the clink of champagne and the rustle of wealth, was a silent tomb, its marble floors echoing only the steps of a lone janitor. It was 7:03 a.m. on May 16, 2025, and Amara Ellis had left the hotel hours ago, her canvas tote slung over her shoulder, her faded hoodie a quiet defiance to the end. She was gone, but her shadow stretched long, a beacon that had reshaped a city, an industry, a world. In her Washington, D.C. office at Apex Ventures, Amara sat at her desk, the morning light filtering through the blinds. Her laptop was open, but her eyes rested on a faded photo tucked beside it. Her grandmother, a waitress in the 60s, fired for her race, her smile defiant despite the pain. Amara's fight, sparked by a receptionist's sneer 5 days ago, was for her mother, for every black woman whose worth was judged by skin, not soul. She'd become a symbol, not by choice but by necessity. Her $3.2 billion deal's end a spark that lit a global fire. Amara's legacy was no trophy. It was a shift in the air, a new pulse in the veins of society. The Malas Check the Card movement, born from her viral video, had grown into a cultural force. On X, 2.1 million posts bore the hashtag, each a story of defiance. A black student refused service at a cafe, a Latina nurse questioned at a resort, a South Asian CEO dismissed as staff. A viral post from Everyday Equity, with 3 million likes, read, "Amara Ellis didn't just expose Meridian, she gave us a voice." The movement transcended hospitality, touching retail, tech, and education, where workers and customers demanded respect over optics. Her audit, a meticulous chronicle of Meridian's bias, became a blueprint. The Ellis audit, adopted by 27 hotel chains worldwide, was more than policy. It was a vow. In Dubai, a Marriott implemented real-time bias reporting, its first case resolving a black guest's complaint in hours. In Tokyo, a Hilton-trained E2 staff was trained to recognize microaggressions. Their sessions cited in a Nikkei article, "The Amara effect redefines luxury." In Atlanta, a boutique hotel hired its first black general manager, her office displaying a framed quote, "Check, my name, not my skin." By 9 a.m., the audit's metrics were public. 200 complaints resolved, 400 staff retrained, and 15% more diverse leadership across adopters. Amara's stand rewrote narratives. At Howard University, a student group launched the Ellis Fellowship at 10:15 a.m., funding black women in finance. Its first scholar, a 19-year-old named Zaria, cited Amara in her application. "She showed me power doesn't need a suit." In London, a black-owned travel agency, Unity Journeys, saw bookings triple. Their slogan, "Travel where you're seen," echoing Amara's fight. The New York Times ran a feature at noon. Amara Ellis, the titan who stayed silent. Its reporter left her a note. Why no interviews? Amara's reply was simple. The truth spoke for me. Meridian, a cautionary tale, was a ghost of itself. Its market value, down $3.5 billion, was a Bloomberg headline. Meridian's fall, a legacy of failure. The hotel's lobby, photographed for a viral Reddit thread, was captioned, "Where Prejudice Lost." Its parent company, Meridian Global Holdings, faced lawsuits from former staff, their claims citing years of ignored bias. The brass plaques, once boasting excellence since 1924, were removed, their absence a silent admission. Amara shunned the spotlight. She declined a TED Talk, a Time Woman of the Year nomination, and a CNN special. A colleague at Apex, watching her sip black coffee, no sugar, said, "You're a hero." Amara shook her head. "I'm not the center, I'm the spark." Her office held no awards, just her grandmother's photo, a reminder of the quiet warriors before her. At 11:30 a.m., she met with Apex's board, redirecting the $3.2 billion to minority-led firms, her voice steady. "We invest in integrity, not empires." The world had changed, but not enough. On X, a post surfaced, "Amara won, but I was profiled today." It had 50,000 retweets, a reminder that her fight was a beginning, not an end. In Harlem, a black barista wore a pin, "Ellis inspired." In Cape Town, a hotel worker shared her story, hashtag #Amara Effect. Her legacy wasn't in headlines, it was in the courage she'd awakened, the mirrors she'd forced others to. As Manhattan's dusk settled, the Meridian stood empty, a monument to what was. Amara, back in D.C., closed her laptop, her grandmother's smile her guide. She'd shifted the world, not with noise, but with truth. The question wasn't for Meridian, it was for all. When judged, will you bow or stand? Her answer was clear, and it echoed forever. Amara Ellis didn't just challenge a hotel, she changed the world. Her stand reminds us, one voice can spark a revolution. What's your take? Have you faced a moment where you had to stand tall? Drop your thoughts below. Your story could inspire the next Amara. Thank you for joining this 60-minute journey. Through her triumph, Hit like, share, and subscribe to catch more tales of courage that reshape our world. We're grateful for you, and we'll see you in the next story. Until then, keep standing strong.